Alright, what's up everybody? First things first, I'm going to plug my brother's poetry book, My 5 Gallons by Michael Ewer. The second, I will leave a link in the description. This is his first one that he's published. If you want to support a Marine Corps combat vet of 8 years, and you enjoy poetry, go ahead, give this a check out. I will leave in links. But yeah, onward to the main point of this video. The problem with the Laurel K. Hamilton books. It's been getting worse. The first books, like my absolute favorite book by Laurel K. Hamilton is definitely Obsidian Butterfly. Edward has always been one of my favorite characters. Going to see his home and all that kind of stuff. And then, like, the plot line of, like, you have these flayed people and then they're actually zombies. That was really fucking cool and one of the really good ones. It was also right before all the sex started coming in. So it's been, like, 10 years that Anita Blake has been a succubus, right? And that brings me to Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch is the 28th book. The story, like the main plot of this book is actually really good. It brings up the question of the execution warrants and how people could use them as a, you know, murder weapon. How the pre-national marshals would feel about that. And it's pretty good for that. But like one of the main problems is it is really heavy on dialogue, but at the same time, it's kind of, I can forgive that because she does try to keep to the main plot line of this book as much as possible. You only come into any real problems with the book when the Furry Coalition sends some people to help keep the shapeshifter that has the warrant of execution on him from shapeshifting. They all happen to be some of Anita's lovers, and it's just like, the interactions between them do not feel honest, like an honest relationship, like, hey, I'm seeing my love while she's at work. It doesn't feel honest. It feels more like Laurel K. Hamilton is just showing off how many lovers Anita has, and it's kind of irritating because it's like, okay, we get it. She's a succubus. She's got like a bajillion lovers. Okay, we get it. And then you come into the, she hasn't eaten all day, and that's gonna start causing problems. She's a 30-year-old woman who is constantly babied by everybody around her into eating. And she's supposed to be a strong, independent woman. Make it make sense. But, they're going to interview a stripper about an alibi for one of the for the stepsister of the shapeshifter. And it basically, she gets there, bartender's like, hey, I'm not going to give you her real name. I'm not going to give you her dress, but I will call her and let her come down here. And Anita just goes into this monologue about how men are always trying to protect the woman and not giving her any autonomy and all of that kind of stuff. He compromised with you because he's the bartender and he's also the head of security, and he's just like, hey, I don't feel comfortable giving this stripper's real name to you. Even if you are the police, you could be lying. I'm going to protect them because it's part of my job. Like, I don't know if this saying fits, but don't hate the player, hate the game. But Like, he's doing his job, and if I was a stripper, or if I was dating a stripper like Anita is, I would be happy that the head of security is just like, hey, I'm thinking about the safety of the girls that work here. I'm going to protect them. If you're saying you're a police officer, but I don't know for sure, I'm going to err on the side of caution. I would be okay with that. Like, don't, like, I mean, even my own job, someone comes in asking for my schedule, they can't give my schedule to somebody. They can be like, well, she's not here, or yeah, she's working, but like, if, and then kind of call me, and then like, if I don't feel comfortable with it, I can let my managers know. But like, it's kind of the same concept as this, but he doesn't know if they're stalking her. And then Anita goes all vampy on the chick later because she hasn't eaten, because she is a child that doesn't think of these things. And the guy comes at her with a baseball bat, and then there's like another point in this part where she's talking about how, like, oh, he's so, I guess you could say, speciest, because he's like, we don't have furry strippers or whatever, and he's kind of like belligerent at it. But like, the moment she starts going vampy on this other stripper, he sees it, recognizes it, and goes into action to protect the stripper. Like, Anita's getting mad at him for basically being kind of racist against shapeshifters and stuff, but at the same time, he instantly recognized when she went vampy on this stripper, and it's like, Anita, he probably had a bad experience with the supernatural, and that's why he is in the job that he's in. That's why he instantly figured out what you were doing, went after you with a baseball bat, and kicked you out of the bar. Like, I'm sorry, but in this scene, I am more on the bartender side than on Anita's side, because she basically did kind of attack the lady because she hadn't eaten, because nobody that was there to baby her, and she can't fucking take care of herself. And that's another problem that's kind of like starting to come into the books. She can't take care of herself anymore. She's not this strong, independent woman that she was in the very first books. In Guilty Pleasures, she could take care of herself. She didn't need other people to take care of her. But then you get to this one, she needs people to tell her to eat. Like, what's going on? Like, there's character growth and there's character degeneration. Like, in some aspects, like, yeah, she's got this shitload of powers now because, like, if you're a vampire and you attack her, she steals your power and kills you. And that's another problem. Like, she's got too many powers, and she never uses them. Like, in the first books, she's constantly talking about how, like, oh yeah, I still have to work at Animators Inc. because I still have to raise the dead. Because if I don't raise it regularly, I just randomly raise the dead. You never see that anymore. Like, you never see her working at it, and then, like, she's always got so many guards. Like, I can't even see how, like, she can go to work. She's gonna go to work with, like, 5 million people with her because she has to be babied. And then, like, her whole tirade on this bartender slash head of security, it was very, like, oh, he's just a guy, and he's not letting her be a strong, he's not letting the strippers be a strong, independent women. And it's like, you can still be a strong, independent woman and allow men to help you. It's not one or the other. It can be both. That's my main problem. Like, other than that part, and then later when they're talking about relationships with Olaf, because Olaf is in this one. Oh my god, scary Olaf. Not very scary when you fucking stop and think about it. And he simps as much as everybody else for Anita. That is another problem. All of the men in this book simp for Anita. Even the women simp for Anita. And I'm just like, y'all are simping for a fucking child. 30-year-old child. But yeah, they have that whole thing, and then the whole climax of the book happens, and it's just... Olaf is supposed to be this big, scary serial killer dude, like, more scary than Edward. Like, he's like Edward on crack type scary. And I'm not scared of him. Like, I don't feel any tension in any of the scenes with Olaf. In like, there's even a scene with Olaf in this one, and there's no tension with him being there, and Anita's all like, oh my god, Olaf is here, Olaf is here, and I'm just like, he's simping for you. Why are you scared of him? Just make him into another bride like Nikki. Problem solved. But that brings me to Smolder. I do like the cover art for these. Like, I like the cover art for all three of these. Like, it's really good. But you have Smolder, and, like, the main selling point for Smolder was, oh, Edward's here. Well, Edward's been in all three of these so far. Serpentine, which is the book right before Sucker Punch. That one was basically all Edward. And that one actually did have a pretty good storyline. I did like the storyline for that one. But we're talking more about these because I've read these ones a little bit more recently. But it's like, oh yeah, Edward's in town. And he's in there for a little bit in the beginning. A little bit at the end. And that's it. And Edward is my favorite character. And he's barely in this book. He's barely in Slay. So is Olaf. Like, both of them are barely in these. And those are her main those are Laurel K. Hamilton's main selling points for these books is... Oh, the sociopaths are here. Well, Nikki's always there, and he's not very scary. I'm sorry, but he's not very scary. But, like, basically the whole plot for this is Edward finally had time to come and get his fitting for his best man clothes. But it's right when Anita has a date night with Jean-Claude, and she has to do that. And then she's gone from badass, strong, independent woman to, what am I going to wear for this date night? Oh, they're surprising me with what I'm going to wear for this date night. Oh my god, it's 5-inch stilettos and I can't fucking walk in them. Anita is not very relatable anymore. In this, she was relatable. Like, I started reading this in fucking high school, and she was relatable to me in this. This, not so much. And I watched interview that Laurel K. Hamilton did shortly after this one was released, and it was when she announced that this one was coming at the end of the year. And in that interview, she was talking about relationships and how it's a tug of war about who's in power, who's in control, and who's not in control, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there like, I don't think Laurel K. Hamilton understands relationships as well as she thinks she does. Both of these books are essentially just circle jerks about how great therapy is. Like, the only murder mystery in this book is literally solved in, like, a chapter or two. It's barely there. Like, you blink and you miss it. The main problem is, like, she goes into this whole detail about how, like, they have these code words for security and shit. And, because Anita's got a call to, like, talk to Claudia about security and upping it. And she can't just, like, psychically be like, hey, Jean-Claude, we gotta do the security shit. No, she can't, because one of the cops has, like, a little charm that makes her powers go funky because it specifically targets people who deal with death magic. So she's got a call, and then there's, like, this whole thing on that. And then, so it's, like, the whole murder, like, the actual, like, murder mystery in this, like, you blink and you miss it. And then, she goes and gets gussied up for her date. And she's just like, oh, I feel so vulnerable because I can't have as many guns as I have, and I have to have help walking, and all this. She's been dating Jean-Claude for over 10 years. you would think she would have figured out how to wear stilettos by now. Or it would have been like, look, I can't walk in stilettos no matter what. And she's basically a shapeshifter that doesn't shapeshift. So she's got their fucking balance and grace. So it's like, how has she not figured this out yet? How? She's a child. She is a 30-year-old child that can't take care of herself anymore. And it's going into how, like, Rue's talking about how, like, oh, I keep seeing my brother Rodrigo in my dreams and stuff, which is foreshadowing for this when you stop and think about it, which she actually did that pretty good. She did that part pretty good. But it's, and, like, Rue and his sister are, like, freaking out because it's their birthday and they're not triplets anymore because one of the triplets is dead. Then you find out, no, he's not actually dead because the mother of all vampires fucking bit him. So instead of dying, he just became, like, a weird hybrid vampire thing. I know. I'm getting ahead of myself. But, so she gets all gussied up. Like, in this, it was more about the murder mystery, the magic, the world building. And then this is just basically therapy, makeup, and dresses. With a little bit of murder mystery mixed in. And it's just like, Laurel K. Hamilton, I think you're losing the plot. But she goes to the date. That's when Deimos fucking attack. Like, she goes crazy on Rodina. And then Rodina's just like, oh, I'm not fit for duty. After, like, almost the entire book going, I'm fit for duty. She goes crazy on her because she can't fucking control her powers, even though she's had them for over a decade now, and you would think she would have learned how to control her goddamn powers by now. And then Deimos attacks. They're all freaking out because he basically almost turns the entire fucking Guilty Pleasures into an orgy, which, that would be kind of funny. In one of the books I've been working on, I have a character, he's technically, like, half incubus, half Dhampir. And, that would be something that he would do on accident. But he would do it on accident because he's only, like, when you first meet him, he's only, like, 18 years old. Barely has control of his powers. He's homeless. Like, that would be something that he would do on accident. And be like, I'm sorry. Because, like, I do write him as more of kind of the innocent, because, like, his family line, whenever an incubus or a succubus is born, they basically yeet them out of the family. Like, they view it as shameful when they're born, because they're a family of Dhampirs that normally have more earth and ice magic. And then every once in a while, out pops an incubus or a succubus because they are born from a line that was basically born between a vampire and a succubus. But yeah, that would be some of the weird shit that he would do on accident. And Deimos comes in, fucking mind rapes them, does this on purpose, essentially. And they're all like, oh, well, we need wolves because the cats aren't helping. So they get the wolves. And Richard comes saving the day like a prince in shining armor. And comes, saves the day, basically goes, oh, yeah, I got a new therapist. I'm bisexual. I'm coming back. Okay. And then, like, Nathaniel does this whole, like, alpha power trip thing, like, I'm higher in the polycule than you. And I'm just like, there's character growth, and then there's just, I've turned into a douchebag. It's just like, at that point, I'm just like, Nathaniel, okay, we get it. Your place is secure. Your place was secure long before this, like, I think you even fucking, like, I get it, Nathaniel and Richard had their problems, but, like, Nathaniel kind of doing that was just kind of I don't know. I didn't really like that for his character. But then they have to go back to the Circus of the Damned. And on the drive there, they're talking. Richard's just kind of explaining again how he's in therapy, and then they're talking about Ireland, and Richard's like, well, thank you for being by her side and protecting her. And then everybody just goes off on him. And I'm sitting there like, why are you going off on him? Like, he's basically saying, thank you for doing what I should have done. Like, I should have been there. I should have been more for her side. And you guys are going off on him because he's admitting he fucked up. And you're just going off on him. And it goes into this huge thing about, like, how, and at one point Richard just goes, well, that's how I was raised. Like, if you love someone, you stand by their side, you protect them, you do that kind of shit. And they're just going off on him about that. And they're like, well, Anita doesn't need someone to protect her. She's the knight in shining armor. And yet all of you baby her. You baby her like she's a fucking child, because she is a child. She can't take care of herself anymore. And then they get to the Circus of the Damned. They get down there, and then Edward goes off on Richard. Like, one of those, like in high school when you have the girl that breaks up with, like, gets dumped by the guy, and then later they get back together and her best friend's just like, that's how Edward comes off in that part. Like, he's going off on Richard about this, and it's just like, what are they, in high school? And I'm just like, okay. And then Anita, Richard, and Jean-Claude all do the fourth mark. Jean-Claude gets another animal to call, and I think it was lions. I believe it's lions that he gets. Yeah, because one of the guys that has, like, 2 animals, yeah. Because that's a thing, like, that's one thing that always really confused me, is Micah and another character get a second animal form. Like, some of, like, the mixed breed tigers have multiple different colors of tigers that they can change into. But then Micah somehow gets a black tiger, and one of the gold tigers gets a lion that he can shapeshift into. And I never understood how they did that. It really doesn't make sense. It kind of feels like not Anita, but Laurel K. Hamilton kind of threw that in, like, oh, see, Anita's not the only one that can do that. Like, but it made no sense for how they got them, because they were just doing some magic, and then all of a sudden they got new animals. It doesn't make much sense, but okay. I mean, one of the books, the book I've been working on with the Incubus, one of the main characters, it's like 4 of the main characters all end up with a second animal that they can shapeshift into. One of them, like, he gains his second animal because at one point he is extremely sick, and part of the way that they are keeping, for lack of a better term, the cancer at bay is they have to feed him wyvern blood, which it changes his eyes, and they're all like, okay, well, why does he have wyvern eyes? He doesn't have the wyvern's claw birthmark. He's not imprinted to a wyvern. What's going on? And then it's later that he's in a fight with basically a hellhound, and the hellhound's really big. He's starting to lose, and then all of a sudden he just shapeshifts into a wyvern and kicks his ass. Like, that's when they're like, oh, that's why he's got the wyvern eyes. That's why he can shapeshift into a wyvern. But it makes more sense about why he has that second form. Technically it'd be 5 characters, because 2 of them are twins, and they actually just, like, biomerge type thing to shapeshift into, like, a really big land snake type thing. But it makes sense, like, on how he got that second form. And then, like, one of the main problems with Anita is every time someone attacks her, she gets that power. But with that character's abilities, it's more of, like, you're watching his abilities evolve and grow, instead of, like, oh, he got attacked, now he's got a new power. It's more of, his powers are evolving like a Pokemon or a Digimon. They're evolving, they're following the same path line. But Anita's, none of her abilities really, like, make sense together. It's just, it's a Cronenberg of power. And, like, when I first started writing my first book, I was kind of doing that with one of the characters, and I think it was because I was getting a little bit of inspiration from the Laurel Clay Hamilton books. But then it was just like, in my head, it was just too much to keep track of, even with notes and stuff. So finally, I just took her powers and split them into 3. I just split them into 3, split them between 3 different characters, and it's actually going a lot smoother. And I'd written it, and then I rewrote the ending, and it was after I'd written the second book, because I was still trying to, like, get people to read it and actually give me constructive criticism for this book before I started doing my own editing and polishing to get it to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm good with this, I'm ready to publish it. But, like, I rewrote that ending, and rewriting it, I actually cut some of her powers because it made more sense and it made the storyline more smooth. Laurel K. Hamilton just keeps giving Anita all these new powers, because, like, you get into this one and it's her family is coming, and by the end of this book she's got another new power, and it doesn't really make sense. Like, now she's a night hag, so it's like she eats anger, which that power actually makes sense for her, because, like, even in this, she was a very angry person, so her having the ability to eat anger makes sense. The lust thing kind of makes sense because of Jean-Claude, but then Deimos attacks her, and she basically becomes a night hag at the end of this, and it doesn't really make sense. The multiple animals kind of make sense because Chimera, the first Panware that you've ever encountered in this, he could shapeshift into multiple animals, and he scratched her. So that makes sense. Like, she probably got whatever, like, new strain he had. She probably got it. It doesn't really make sense that Edward is suddenly like her. Like, he's got the benefits of a shapeshifter, but without being able to shapeshift, which honestly I would consider that a benefit. Like, shapeshifters in my books, like, they shapeshift pretty regularly, and depending on how powerful they are, if they have the half form, they use it in fighting. Like, they basically shapeshift and use it as, like, another form of weapon. So it's like, I don't understand why. Like, they're always talking, like, every once in a while they'll mention other countries that use shapeshifters as, like, soldiers, and it's like, why isn't America doing this? It's like, they talk about some Van Cleef guy, and they mention him, but they never bring him into the book, and it's just kind of like, okay, I don't know where you're going with this, but I don't understand why the government isn't using shapeshifters, why the government isn't like, oh, hey, necromancer, like, Anita Blake can do all of this weird shit with necromancy, like, why aren't we looking into actually, like, using this in the army? I don't understand why they're not doing that. But, like, she gets a new power, and it doesn't make sense with her powers. But, like, this one, she has her family. They're all basically bigoted assholes. And, well, except for, like, her stepmom and stepsister and her half-brother, like, they're not super bigoted assholes. And it's... The other two I actually listened to on audiobook, but Anita Blake basically goes on and on and on and drones on and on and on about how, like, her family is so bigoted and so mean to her and all of that stuff. And then they get into a slight argument. She storms off. Someone tries to throw holy water on Jean-Claude. And it's basically a vampire who, I guess, is having a crisis, like a sexuality crisis, because he's just kind of like, oh my god, he's so cute, and I feel like he's trying to make me gay. It's like, okay. So he tries to throw, like, holy water on Jean-Claude. Well, the wicked truth gets in the way. They get holy watered, and Anita ends up handcuffed on the ground because she starts going all, like, ooh, mystical thing, and, like, there's this whole thing where, like, a bunch of holy water gets on her, and it's all, like, glowing and fiery and shit. And I think Laurel K. Hamilton only put that in to be like, look at Anita, she's so amazing. But, like, she's on the ground in the cuffs because I guess the cops have decided that new policy is when you get to the scene of a crime and there's a supernatural person going all crazy and shit with their magic, you secure them, put them in handcuffs, all that kind of stuff. So they have her in handcuffs like this on her stomach on the ground. She's wearing a skirt and it's starting to kind of ride up. Well, Anita is so I've been watching body cam footage for, like, DUIs and shit, and it's fucking hilarious sometimes. But like, especially when you, like, this whole scene plays out like one of those in my head. And she's a preternatural marshal, right? Well, she was the preternatural that was kind of going all voodoo-y, right? So the cops follow protocol, put her in handcuffs, put her on the ground. Part of the protocol is they have to wait for a preternatural marshal to come and go, okay, they're safe to release. It makes a lot of sense when you stop and think about it, because it's, they're trying to protect the public. They're securing something that could be a danger. They don't know. So they're securing it, making sure, like, hey, we're doing this for the safety of the public. They probably could have, like, secured her, put her in a cop car. But she's freaking out like, I am a preternatural marshal. I know I'm safe. You should release me. And then there's a whole part where she's just like, my skirt's riding up. I'm flashing my panties to the world. And the cop's just like, oh, I'm sorry. And he, like, goes to, like, put it down. Like, it's not, there's nothing nefarious. And she freaks out, like, why are you touching me? And then Nikki gets in his face, which, when you stop and think about it, Nikki should not have been that close to him. Like, it's a safety hazard for the officers. The whole scene just plays out like an entitled bitch going, you can't arrest me. And I'm just like, this is not a good look for you, Anita. Like, I know I'm referencing my own writing, but I'm also trying to get it published and people to actually read it. But, like, if one of the alphas in the series that I've been writing, because, like, I've got the first book that I've been writing, and then there's another book series that I'm working on at the same time that's actually set 2,000 years after this, where it's, like, more of a modern,
I saw this.
It's more of a, modern take on things, and I think I honestly, like, kind of got the inspiration for it because I've been so annoyed with the Anita Blake series lately. But, if one of those alphas was there, say in some weird thing, like that universe and then this universe that Laurel K. Hamilton has, like, there's a doorway between them, and, like, one of those alphas is there, seeing this, they'd be like, that's your fucking queen? No, we are not dealing with you guys. Bye. And, like, the main character in that series, Kieran, which shares a name with one of the characters in this because he's actually a direct descendant of him, and they share the same name because they have the same power. But, like, if he was there, he'd just be like, really? I grew up a fucking half vampire in a society that hates us. I get arrested, I'm sitting there fucking quiet. I'm not saying shit. Even if they are being jerks to me, I'm not saying shit. Because, like, I do have a scene where he, gets arrested because they think he murdered somebody, and he's just sitting there and is like, just waiting for my lawyer. You need any? Just a cup of coffee's fine. Like, that's how he reacts to it, because he understands, like, if he starts going crazy, it's not going to end well for him. And he grew up with werebears, and he actually grew up in essentially their royal family. So, because, like, Dhampirs have this weird ability to be able to become shapeshifters if they do specific things. But, like, so the royal family adopted him, and the only real reason why they let him stay at Dhampir is because it's like, he's essentially third in line. They're just like, we're making you third in line so we can have you in the family and, like, keep you as an adoptive son, but if anything happens to the other two, you're gonna have to become a werebear, sorry. But, so, he learns about leadership and shit like that. So, like, if he was sitting there looking at this, he'd be like, no, we are not dealing with you guys. No. But, like, that's how Anita comes off in this. And then, one of the other officers on scene actually lets her out of the cuffs, and it's just like, you don't know if she's lying. Like, why are you just going at her word? Like, you should be following your protocol. Like, just because she has a good reputation with the cops doesn't mean that she can't snap at any time. But they let her go. She goes and sees the wicked truth, sees that her dad was actually helping them, like, cleaned out the stuff. So it's like, okay, she keeps going on about how bigoted her family is, but, like, the entire time, like, all of the scenes with it, hi buddy, her family really doesn't feel that bigoted to me. The only one that really feels bigoted is the grandma. But I think that's more of, like, at one point, Anita's just like, oh, she's got necromancy. I see why she was such a bitch to me when I was a kid. And it's just like, that would be cool if Laurel K. Hamilton had actually done anything with that. Like, she does nothing with that little tidbit of information that you get about Anita's grandparent, or grandma. And, but she gets uncuffed. They go to the hospital with the wicked truth. And then there's this doctor. And I'm sorry, but the way she describes this doctor, because, like, I guess he's got, like, this, new skin graft stuff that he wants to try out on the wicked truth. And Anita is being an arrogant bitch. I'm sorry, but Anita comes off really bad in this book. She really does. And I'm just sitting there like, why are so many people fucking simping for this bitch? But it's like, they go there and find the part. I bookmarked the cop scene because it comes off really bad. Let's see. And they're talking about the Preternational Marshal Bryce, which I never understood why he just instantly came out to Anita and Zabrowski about being gay, just out of nowhere, just like, oh yeah, I'm gay. Like, what? Nobody cares. Just do your job. Like, that's how I feel, and it's like, he's dating around the police station with the women to kind of hide that he's gay, and I'm just like, it's 2023, nobody's gonna give a shit. I'm sorry, but nobody's gonna fucking give a shit. Okay. But yeah, okay, so the doctor, there's a doctor, he's got, like, the skin graft things, and, like, her internal monologue or internal dialogue about this guy basically goes, he's an arrogant white guy. And it's just like, he's got the skin graft. He wants to try it on the Wicked Truth to see if he can heal them from their stuff. And she's like, no, we'll do it ourselves. We'll heal them ourselves. We don't need your skin graft. You're not giving me your data. Like, you're not going to make them guinea pigs. Okay, well, he probably doesn't have that data. He's in a real life situation where it's like, hey, can I try this? Like, can we try this? This will help other people. And she is just so arrogant about her own abilities that she is not even giving this doctor a chance. And she's so racist about it as well. Because it's like, okay, here it is. Dr. Christopher Bowden didn't disappoint. He was white, though if Echo and I were white, then it seemed wrong word for his skin tone. He had an olive complexion that he'd tan darkly if he tried. But whatever I thought, he had that white male arrogance of someone who had been tall in shape all his life, plus good at getting great grades. So he also thought he was brilliant, and maybe he was, but he relied on his charm too. His short brown hair was cut and styled so that it flattered but did not distract from his square manly jaw or the clear blue gaze of his twinkling eyes. They twinkled because he was smiling at me. The smile managed to be both boyishly good-looking and slightly condescending, as if once he'd aimed that smile at someone, they would agree to his every wish and be happy to do so, but I wasn't his usual audience. It's like, it feels, and y'all are probably going to sit there and be like, well, you're a white girl, you don't understand it. I'm sorry, but this feels extremely racist towards this man. Like, she's never met him. He's basically going, hey, I've been studying skin grafts. We've been trying to, because, like, I'm sure there are thousands of vampires that have been scarred and damaged throughout their long lives. And now that they're citizens, now there's more of a reason for people to look into, like, hey, someone like Asher, he's got all of those scars all over him from holy water. And even in this book, they're talking about how, like, he's gone to doctors trying to figure out a way to fix himself, to make himself beautiful again. And because that is a really hard thing for him. Like, I've never been scarred like that, but I'm sure, but I have seen people that were scarred like that. In my high school, there was a student who had scars all over the side of his face from when he was hit by a drunk driver, when he was a child. And I'm sure, like, if there was a way that, like, even if it was experimental, that he could make that side of his face like the other side of his face that wasn't as scarred, he would be willing to look into it and maybe even try it. And the way that vampires heal in this, if there is a skin graft that they can use, why not? And especially with, like, a holy water burn this fresh. But Anita, in her arrogance, is like, no, we'll do it. And she can't even, like, if she was a guy, she's not even able to get it up at this point. So it's just like, let the doctor try. If it doesn't work, when you can get it up, you can sex him back. I'm sorry, but, like, this whole, because it's like chapter 22, like, this entire scene with this doctor, it does not paint Anita in a very good light, because she's just like, oh, he's just an arrogant white guy. Ugh. We'll do it ourselves. That's how she comes off, especially to me, and it's bad. It's really bad. They basically tell the doctor no. And this is a doctor that literally found drugs that knocked them out, so they didn't have to suffer as much pain when they were, like, clearing away, like, burnt flesh and shit. Like, I'd be like, you know what? I can't get it up. I can't do my sexy magic. Might as well try. Because if it works, this is something other vampires that don't have access to Anita Blake's pussy can use to get better. Because it's like every problem between Smolder and Slay, every problem, it's, oh, we're having a problem. Sexy time. And between the two books, it does feel like Laurel K. Hamilton is trying to pull back from the spicy bits. Because, like, it's like, and you're just sitting there like, just fuck already. I'm sorry, but in the first few books where there's, like, that sexual tension, it's like, okay, fine, whatever. But, like, in Smolder, there's many times where it's just like, okay, they're about to have sex. Hopefully that's at least interesting, because the rest of the book is kind of, and then they don't do it until the very end. And then in this one, it's like, oh, they're about to have sex. Okay, let's go. This will probably be better than the rest of the book. And they never get to it. Like, they never actually do anything in this. But she can't get it up. She's having problems with her powers because, basically someone betrays them. Somehow takes away the Ardor from her. And then they're just like, okay, we're having problems. Okay, we washed the holy water off of me. I can go touch John Claude. Okay, let's go fuck John Claude. So it's like, the Wicked Truth is wounded. Let's fuck him back to health. Oh, I can't get it up because something's going on with my powers. All right, well, let's get me back to John Claude. So then the whole book, then the story turns to, okay, they're trying to get to John Claude. Then she gets kidnapped along the way by Deimos. And then Deimos, like, takes away, like, does something to her. Like, and then bites her, and then gives her the power to feed on fear, I guess. Fear or despair. One of the two. I think despair. But, because, like, he's, like, supposedly the despair of war or something. I don't fucking know. At this point, it's just like, he kidnaps her, somehow manages to kidnap Richard as well. There's like one part when Edward comes to save the day where she kind of like gropes Richard a little bit and she's in handcuffs, and it's like, oh, now it's okay for her to be in handcuffs because it's Edward that has her in handcuffs, and she's dangerous because Deimos bit her. So it's okay if Edward puts you in handcuffs, but it's not okay when a police officer is doing his job and puts you in handcuffs. You are an arrogant bitch. And then she's trying to tell Edward, like, no, you didn't kill Deimos. Deimos is still alive. And then Deimos just, like, bursts out of the building and is just like, I'm not going to call him a dragon because he's more of a salamander. He can't fly. He doesn't even look like an Asian dragon. Like, he's more of a salamander. He bursts out. Edward and Olaf's there. They get in, like, the fire suits. And then Olaf protects Anita with a fire-resistant thing. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm going to just point out that my character that can shapeshift into a wyvern, he's fireproof. He would literally have just stood in that flame and fired directly into that guy's mouth with a high-powered weapon. That is what he would have done. Because he's fireproof. Like, he can withstand that shit. Because it's part of his magic. Yes. That's like canon in the books before this book even came out. I'm just gonna point that out. Because I've been working on this first one for 3 years now. There's like an entire group of people that are fireproof that love spicy food. They are crazy. But, Deimos is in his, like, animal form. They get him to a cliff. They're trying to push him off. They're firing at him to keep him from roasting everybody. And, like, the entire thing, Anita does nothing. And, like, somehow she gets another shapeshift form of bear. And it's like, how? normally you have to be scratched by something to gain that animal. When were you scratched by a bear? But then she does all this new magic. She gets new magic. She does the new magic. And it's just like, Anita, you have too many powers. Just too many powers. Like, it would make more sense for Anita's powers to be split between multiple different people. And instead of gaining new powers, she gains new allies. And it makes... Anita's a Mary Sue. And she's not even a very good Mary Sue. It's very much in the line of her power. She's just so powerful, it's boring. Like, nothing really challenges her. Like, yeah, she got knocked on her ass, but then she comes back and in the end of the book, she gets the Ardeur back. All of her powers are back, and she has a new power. And they make, and then, like, Rue and Rodina's brother, Rodrigo, is still alive because he's a vampire now, and they make him into another bride. And it's like, why don't you just turn Olaf into a bride? He's not very scary anyway. But those are my thoughts on the way Laurell K. Hamilton's books are going right now. I have read A Terrible Fall of Angels. I did enjoy it. There were a few parts that were kind of weird. I'll have to, like, reread it again to just make sure. But, Sucker Punch was good because the plot actually did hold this one together. But these ones, there really was no plot. I mean, you had the whole sort of plot line with, the fact that, like, everybody was attacking preternaturals that night, and just, like, police were, like, everything was just going off, and during that entire thing, and, the book would have been better if, I think this book would have been better if, Laurell K. Hamilton would have followed that plot line. And been like, okay, the cops finally just kind of go, okay, we know you're with your family, but we really need you right now. Like, I'm sorry. It would have made for a more compelling story where she's just, like, trying to figure this out, and then they realize that it's Deimos. And then she does some weird voodoo magic and basically just kind of, like, stops it all. Because, like, it's the only thing that she can do to help. It would have made it better, and then, like, the whole Deimos thing, there's potential in that. Because, like, she could have done with Deimos what she did with Mommy Dearest. Like, have it go through multiple books where he attacks her multiple times. And instead of her gaining a new power and all that kind of stuff, like, maybe Rodrigo comes and tries to, like, take her with whatever, and then, like, she makes him into another bride and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was kind of cool where it's like, okay, they have some of the Harlequin, like, betrayed them. That was kind of interesting. And maybe have it to where, and then, like, I guess, like, they blew out the stairs into the inner sanctum for the Circus of the Dam or whatever. Like, following the plot line of, like, she could have taken the plot line where all of these hate groups are attacking preternaturals, followed that plot line, followed Anita trying to, like, help save her city and all that kind of stuff, followed that, and then, basically, like, turn Rodrigo into a bride again, and all that kind of stuff. Follow that plot line, and it probably would have been better than what we got. Like, what we got, the book didn't start getting better until towards the end, when Deimos shapeshifted, and then they're fighting him. And then at the same time, it's like you had this entire scene in this book where Anita is talking about how, like, I'm the knight in shining armor here to save the princess. She stood on the sidelines while Edward and Raphael did everything. Yeah. And then you have the entire thing where, like, in Laurel K. Hamilton's interview about Smolder, where she's talking about how relationships are a tug of war and all that stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm personally not in a relationship, but even I understand that a relationship is not a tug of war between one person and the other about who's in charge and all that stuff. It's a team effort. You are both in charge. I mean, I guess you could call him my pseudo boyfriend right now. If it comes to something that I don't understand, I'm going to defer to him. But if it's something that I understand better, he'll defer to me. That's how you work. In my own books, the one with the incubus, at one point, the character that can shapeshift into a wyvern, he ends up getting married. When they start getting closer to each other, it's not a tug of war between who is in charge and all that stuff. It's when one is out of their deep depth, the other one steps up and helps. Like, that's how it works. You work as a team. It's not a tug of war about who's in charge. It's a team effort. And that was one thing where it's like, Laurel K. Hamilton says that, and I'm just like, this is why Anita has so many problems with her polycule. It's not because they all need therapy, which, yeah, probably. Like, some of them are like thousands or hundreds of years old and have been abused, so yeah, probably they do need therapy. But it's also the fact that Anita's coming at it as one person has to be in charge. That's not how that works. You work as a team. It's like in the Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. When you're looking at Sidon and Sidar, it's not about who's in control and who's more powerful. It's about working together. The Age of Legends was so great because men and women work together. It's the same in a relationship. The relationship works when both parties or every person in the polycule works together to make the relationship work. Richard coming out and being like, okay, I am bi. I'm sorry about what happened in the past, but I'm willing to work with you now. And then them coming at him the way that they did in Smolder. To me, that for Richard, he should look at that as a red flag, as this is not going to work if they're going to come at me when I'm being honest about my feelings, when I'm making the effort to make this work. Other people are all like, oh, Laurel K. Hamilton should stop trying with the Anita Richard love line, and I'm sitting and I'm kind of agreeing with them, but it's not for the same reasons. I think that Richard would be better off not with Anita. Like, I think a lot of them would probably be better off not with Anita, because she's the Mary Sue. Everybody keeps simping for her. But in essence, she is a 30-year-old child that they have to take care of. She can't take care of herself anymore. It's not like in Guilty Pleasures when she was a strong, independent woman. She is not a strong, independent woman anymore. She needs people to take care of her. And I get it. Like, you can have a strong, independent woman who goes through some shit, and then all of a sudden she's very paranoid and stuff. Like, in this book, she was okay with not having a gun every once in a while, or not being armed to the teeth. By the time she gets to book 30, she is this character that needs, she has to have a weapon with her at all times. It's like, you can't touch my right hand. That's my gun hand. Don't touch my right hand. Like, she comes off as a character that has no, she's not, Laurel K. Hamilton is trying to write her as a strong, independent woman that always kicks ass, that if you hate her, it's because you're jealous of her, and all that stuff. She's not. Like, people could meet her and just be like, you're just an arrogant bitch. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then it's like, and in the interview I watched, Laurel K. Hamilton's talking about how, like, oh, well, they're going to have to, like, not invite some people to the wedding because, it's going to be such a target-rich environment. Anita Blake is nicknamed War. She's going to be in the heart of her power. She's going to be surrounded by deadly trained people. What are you expecting someone to do? Just send a nuke at them? Which, not really that bad of an idea. You stop and think about it. But anyway, I have been rambling long enough. I'm sure I've gotten my point across at least 5 times. Probably repeated myself. But yeah, the main problem, there's a lot of misandry in these books. Anita is not the strong, independent woman that she was in Guilty Pleasures. She is a 30-year-old child that everybody else needs to take care of. Laurel K. Hamilton could bring it back. If she just, like, you, with Sucker Punch, you do see some of the old style of writing. You see a little bit of it in Slay. And in that interview, Laurel K. Hamilton's talking about how, like, you have the rough draft and it has to go through editing, like, 50 bajillion times before it's ready. And these books, it doesn't feel like they went through that kind of rigor. But, like, Sucker Punch does show that Laurel K. Hamilton does still have it in her, that she can still write a really good book. It's just the way that the Anita Blake series is going now, it just doesn't feel like... It feels like she's trying to cater to everybody. And it's just... My brother, one of his old Marine buddies is in my friends list on Facebook, and I mentioned... the Laurel K. Hamilton books once, and it was kind of embarrassing that, like, okay, my brother's friend reads these too and knows I enjoy them. I was talking about how, like, Smolder was really disappointing and all that stuff, and he's like, Laurel K. Hamilton? I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I've been noticing it too, and I'm not the only person that is seeing these problems, and I doubt you'll ever see this, but Laurel K. Hamilton, if you ever see this video and you get to this point, I'm not trying to rag on you as like, oh my god, this is a terrible author. You're not PC Cast. Like, her Into the Mist. Oof, that was hard. I had to get the audiobook. I could not read that one. These ones I can actually at least read. But if you ever see this, look at Sucker Punch. Look at Obsidian Butterfly. Look at your earlier books. And try to go back to that. I mean, the magic, all that stuff, it's cool, but at the end of the day, it's too much. It's just too much. It's keep it simple, stupid. But anyway, I'm going to end this here. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. If you've made it this far, comment your favorite. Comment what you like about Laurel K. Hamilton's books. Comment what you dislike about Laurel K. Hamilton's books. If you go check out my brother's book, comment and tell me why you did or didn't buy it. As I am trying to help out my brother. I'll also leave a link to his podcast. The Rambling Devil podcast. He's done some short stories on that, and they're pretty funny. Like, my brother's pretty good at writing. But anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I will definitely try to catch you in the next one. Bye.